Hello and welcome. Today we will read the poem Mirror by Sylvia Plath. Sylvia Plath, as we know, is a very famous poet. A part of her life, the story of her life, has already been talked about in my other videos. Please look at that video before going through this poem in this video. Now let's begin with the poem Mirror. This poem is actually not a very long poem, and but at the same time it's a little complex, so we would read it a little slowly. Here the poem is from the point of view of a mirror. It says, I am silver and exact. I have no preconceptions. Whatever I see, I swallow immediately, just as it is, unmisted by love or dislike. I am not cruel, only truthful, the eye of a little god four-cornered. Most of the time I meditate on the opposite wall. It is pink, with speckles. I have looked at it so long, I think it is a part of my heart. But it flickers. Faces and darkness separate us over and over. Now we can clearly understand that this is the personification of a mirror. And the mirror, as we know, can see things as they are. So it is unaffected, it's unmisted by any emotion. So the reading is that the mirror does not lie. It tells you, it shows whatever it sees. So therefore, it is not cruel, it is only truthful, even if the picture that it shows you is not very pleasant, that is the truth. The eye of a little god. Now, what do we mean by little god? Here, the word god is not given with a capital initial. So, the god with a lowercase initial would mean again similar things that we associate with God, who sees everything as it is. The pink wall is representative of a woman's room. Perhaps this room with this mirror is in the room of a woman, and maybe pink, since it's the color of femininity, it is mostly associated with femininity, although people say it's a cliche. But here the poet wanted to talk about the woman without really discussing her overtly. So the pink color is actually a representative of the woman's room. And it almost feels like, since it's in front of a wall, it almost feels like the natural color of the mirror is also pink. It almost feels like the wall is actually a part of the mirror. It is the mirror, but it flickers, which means that it changes, and the images on the mirror keep changing. Sometimes faces come into it, right? So faces and darkness separate the mirror from the wall, as it were. And whenever somebody comes between the wall and the mirror, the images on the mirror change. So the first stanza is actually quite easy to access. It gives a simple image of a mirror which tells you the truth. And the special part about the mirror is that it is in somebody's room, and that somebody would be known to us in the next stanza. Now the poem is only actually 2 stanzas. I have divided the second stanza into 2 different parts so as to discuss it properly. So let me look at the first part of the second stanza. Now I am a lake. A woman bends over me, searching my reaches for what she really is. Then she turns to those liars, the candles or the moon. Now the mirror imagines itself as a lake on which a woman bends over to see her reflection. The comparison to a lake is made perhaps because this woman spends a lot of time in front of the mirror. It is almost like she is drowning herself, she's immersing herself in the reflection, in her own reflection, which could be a slight reference to the mythical figure of Narcissus. But the poet does not make that overt claim. So she wants to see herself very deeply, she wants to observe herself, but she wants to see much more than her own reflection. That is the reason this word searching for my reaches is written. When we talk about searching for my reaches, she wants to see in the mirror what she really is. She subtly knows, she heart of her heart, she knows that physical appearances should not matter enough, but and she wants something deeper from the mirror, but she's unable to find it. And perhaps she does not like her reflection also. So when she turns to other calming sources, more calming sources, when she wants to uh, be a little happier with her reflection, when she wants to be happy with herself, she wants to go to the candle or the moonlight, which makes her appearance look better, which makes her appearance look a little more softer. So, which she so it also makes her blemishes look a little less. So she wants to feel pretty, basically. Um, so she feels that she would be able to feel prettier in front of the candle or in the moonlight. But the mirror calls them the liars, because the woman is aging and she does not um, look as youthful as she used to be. Now, readers would say that why is the poem a little ageist? It is assuming that a woman who's old would automatically not be pretty. But that's not the point that the poet is making. The poet is trying to say that the woman, despite everything else, wants something from the mirror. She's dependent upon the mirror. That dependency of the woman on her physical appearance is actually talked about in this poem. Let's look at the next part of the poem. I see her back and reflect it faithfully. She rewards me with tears and an agitation of hands. I am important to her. She comes and goes. Each morning it is her face that replaces the darkness. In me she has drowned a young girl, and in me an old woman rises towards her day after day like a terrible fish. Now the mirror imagines itself to be something important to the woman, and but when she looks at the mirror, when she comes again and again towards the mirror, she is unable to accept her reflection. We remember in the beginning that the mirror had told us that it's exact, it's truthful, it does not, it is unmisted, right? So maybe the woman does not want to accept the truth. Maybe she does not want to accept that she's aging. Now, even though you may think that age makes you pretty, makes you wiser, but aging is a thing that people still struggle with. It is something that you have to accept. You may accept willingly, or you may struggle to accept it. And this is just this woman's battle to accept her age more gracefully, and she's somehow unable to do that. In me, it says, in me she has drowned a young girl, and in me, an old woman. So, the truth of her aging, that's the truth that she wants to hide from. But whenever she sees the mirror, she sees this woman older, which is approaching her like a fish which is difficult to catch. Now, sometimes the last image, the terrible fish, is difficult for you to understand, just like a slippery fish, which is very difficult to catch. The woman is also getting older with age, so it's difficult to grasp this reality. It's difficult to change this reality about her, and that's what is, unfortunately, that's what is happening to our protagonist here. Now, the poem talks about the fear of aging. It is not just a poem about the mirror, and it also comments that aging is particularly a challenge for women. Now, since Plath has mostly written autobiographical poems, let's read a little bit into her life story as well. Plath was writing at a time, this is a poem which is written in the early 60s, and this is just before the second wave of feminism, and women in her generation are particularly caught between the public and private lives. And this is the generation which has lived through the war. So Plath was herself very creative, very intelligent. She's also very, very ambitious. But at the same time, marriage, family, all of that is very important to her. And that was, in fact, I've talked about in her life story as well. That was something that deeply depressed her, the fact that her marriage was falling apart. So her biographer talks about her fondness also of her appearance and of fondness for clothes. So Towards the later part of her life, however, she's troubled by her marriage, which is falling apart, and her biographer says that her husband would also call her an old hag. Now, I'm making a reading uh, into her life for her poetry, but because she writes such autobiographical poems, it is sometimes important for us to look back at her life and drive some more understanding of a poem. But even if you do not go into her life story, even if you do not go into her biography, if one stays away from bringing her life into this interpretation, this poem still very astutely makes the statement about women's dependence upon physical appearance, which to a great extent is the truth even today. So, despite knowing that what it is all about, she searches for what she really is in the mirror, and that's what she hangs on to.